Syria rarely allows reporters into the country, so first-hand accounts are rare, but we have one this evening from reporter Austin Tice, who is inside Syria on assignment for the Washington Post.
It was quite a scene when they struck the government flag on the roof and raised the Free Syrian flag. There was quite a bit of sort of celebration in the streets. You can just imagine the scene.
That was the voice of missing American journalist Austin Tice, who shared his firsthand reporting on the Syrian Civil War with the CBS Evening News back in 2012. Tice traveled deep into Syria to uncover more about the conflict. 1 month after that report that you just heard on CBS, he went missing. The fall of the Assad regime last year raised new hope that Tice might be found, but his whereabouts remain a mystery. Gareth Browne joins us now. He's a Middle East correspondent for The Economist and is the host of the new podcast series, The Hunt for Austin Tice. Gareth, thank you for joining us. I did get a chance to listen to some of the podcasts. You've obviously traveled to Syria and have spoken with people who knew Austin Tice very well, including former CBS 60 Minutes correspondent Clarissa Ward. What did you learn about Tice and what brought him to Syria in the first place?
I mean, I think we learned a lot about Tice, the man, the individual, this former US Marine turned law student, Georgetown graduate who then was trying his hand at journalism in 2012. We learned a lot about quite an idealistic man who was really driven to go and learn to be a journalist in probably the most difficult place in the world to do that job. And I think by all accounts, he picked it up very quickly. And, he didn't have much journalistic experience before he went into Syria in the summer of 2012. But very soon he was, appearing on CBS News. He was getting bylines in the Washington Post, the Miami Herald. Journalistically speaking, he made an impact. He was very deep into the story. And he was aiming to be the first foreign journalist to make it from the rebel-held north to the capital, Damascus, at that time. And he did do that. He eventually made it to the suburbs of Damascus. But it was when he tried to leave Syria for a break for Beirut in Lebanon that his troubles really started.
And you're operating as though, in this podcast too, that he is still alive, that he is out there.
Yeah, I think, Austin's fate is in many ways an open question. I mean, it's more than a decade since he went missing. And there were various efforts over the year on diplomatic levels, on private levels, NGOs, obviously Austin's family, to get information, to cut a deal with the Syrian regime, which obviously none of those ever came to fruition. But I was one of the first foreign journalists into Damascus in December after the Assad regime fell. And, the 7 months or so since then have presented, I think, an extraordinary opportunity to really trace what happened to Austin. Because now we're not just going through documents or searching for traces, but we can actually find people from the Assad regime who were directly involved in his detention. And we can, this is what we've done in the podcast. We've sat down and collected these testimonies from senior Assad regime officials who offer for the first time in over a decade stone cold testimony of Austin's captivity.
Without giving away parts of your podcast, what new information have you discovered about his possible whereabouts since Assad's downfall?
Well, I think we certainly put to bed the notion that he might have been held by a jihadist group or rebel groups. We can say with absolute certainty he was held by the regime, and in particular, a certain pro-regime militia, the National Defense Forces, who were active in and around Damascus at that time, and we explore that in episode 3, which comes out on Saturday. We also name some of the key individuals, who were responsible for holding him captive. And, maybe one or two of these will be known to people who have followed the war in Syria, Bassam al-Hassan in particular, who was a close aide of President Bashar al-Assad. But there are other officials who are, directly involved in Austin's detention, and now they're living openly outside of Syria, in Lebanon, in Russia, in Iran. And I think for the first time, their involvement in this case is becoming a matter of public knowledge in this podcast.
Yeah, and I know the family's been outspoken and they're looking for closure. So hopefully this podcast will potentially lead to that, some more information and just keeping his name out there. Gareth Browne, thank you so much.
Thank you.